never figured out how to see the chat on my computer for some dumb reason. I've tried like the different settings and it never shows up. So
Me either. I got to use my phone
on the iPad. So, all right. Well, I don't know if I don't see anybody in the chat yet. So right now it's just us. But for those that watch later, welcome to our breakdown of season 2 of Game of Thrones. As joining me in the first episode is Mr. Miracle himself, Dave. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing? How's everybody out there today? Ready to do some Game of Thrones? Oh, I'm getting excited. The next season's going to start soon.
Yeah, it's going to be here before we know it. I'm definitely not going to get through all of the episodes, all the seasons before the new one starts, but I've seen them before, so that's okay. My goal now, as I was telling you beforehand, is to kind of get all these season breakdowns done before the finale and actually have a breakdown of the season up to that point before the finale, as opposed to trying to get them done before the premiere, because that ain't happening. Because I started too late. I just waited too long to do it.
Well, I'll try and get through all the seasons again before the season premiere.
But I don't know. You got to average 2 or 3 episodes a day at this point to get there, and I don't think that's gonna happen. So.
Pretty close. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll just have a couple days of like super binge.
Yeah, that's what it will take. It'll take a couple days of just like doing nothing else but watching Game of Thrones. So exactly. We will see if we make it there or not. So our goal is to keep this to around an hour and 15, as opposed to the hour and 45 we went last time. The cat has decided she needs attention, even though you guys can't really see her. But so we're probably going to move quickly through the first part of the season, just because we both felt like there's stuff there that's important, but the pacing on the season is not quite as fast, and there's not a lot in some of these episodes when you compare it to like some of the other seasons, or particularly the first season. So with that, we'll just get started. Is there any, like, I guess from your point of view, any big takeaways as you were going into the season that you were really looking forward to as we get started here?
Like, yeah, I really, I was like, I wanted to see what was going to happen to Brandon and the Stark kids.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big one. I was like, whoa, stuff's going on here. And then you're starting to see the big players sort of shift and get more and more powerful, right? So different Northerners are coming. All of a sudden, the Iron Islands are starting in and stuff like that. So, that's what kind of where I was really starting to see what was going on. And as well, when we ended last season, Daenerys had her dragon suddenly, right? So I was really interested to see what sort of story development happened around the dragons too.
All right. Well, yeah, those are, to me, those are the big things that I wanted to see coming into this season, whereas Tyrion headed to be Hand of the King. What happens with Dany and her dragons? And then what's going to happen to the Stark kids now that their dad is gone, and how they're going to like deal with this. And so, with that, let's kind of get started. We talked about some of these early episodes. There's not a lot. The main thing to me that we see in the first episode is Tyrion arriving in King's Landing and announcing himself as Hand of the King, and Cersei freaking out, and just their interaction. As you could tell, she just really doesn't like her brother. And he's taking a little bit of perverse joy in the fact that she's going to have to like deal with him, and he has some power in the situation that he probably has never really had in their relationship.
Yeah, but he's got his father's power, so she's going to respect that, right?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't respect her brother. She hates the fact that her father's done this. And yeah, but you can tell he's pretty smug about it. He knows he's got, a good deck of cards in his favor now.
Yeah. And, there's a fun thing in there, you can tell that they're really just how much animosity is between the two of them, just in that first interaction. And she's like, and he's trying to say that, he's there to help Joffrey, to help, he's not there to be a pain in her side, but he knows that she loves her children. And what is it he says? He's got a fun line in that first interaction of, your only redeeming qualities are that you love your kids and your cheekbones. That's what he says. Your only redeeming qualities. So you just get and that just sets up a lot of fun interaction between the two of them. And those two, Lena Headey and Peter Dinklage, are just maybe the two best actors on the show, which says a lot. And their scenes together are just, from here forward, are just phenomenal. Anytime they're together in a scene, it's just so good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the interaction between those two, like you can just feel the tension between in every scene those two actors are in, right? Like they hate each other. At times, Cersei respects Tyrion's plans, but just hates him so much that she has to, do whatever she can to undermine him,
So the only other things I really highlighted from this episode, other than that, were we meet finally for the first time a character we've heard a lot about in the first season, which is Stannis Baratheon, Robert's oldest brother. The person that Ned thought should be king just because he had the rightful claim to the throne. We meet Stannis. We meet some of his inner circle. We meet the Red Woman, the priestess for the Lord of Light, which is a different god than most of that we've been introduced to in the Seven Kingdoms before. And we meet.
She's a very interesting chick. She's very scary, and I always liked her line there. The night is dark and full of terrors.
Yeah, I mean that's her
catchphrase.
He comes on the scene. He's burning statues of the seven of the gods, and like you see this priest who's been that's there to help Stannis try to kill her, and like he dies from the poison, and she just drinks it, and nothing happens to her, and it's like, and so you could tell that this woman there's more to this woman than meets the eye, that she has some power there. And the other person we meet in Stannis' inner circle is Davos, who is going to be, is kind of Stannis' voice of reason a little bit. He's this average guy that's found himself elevated because he did an important thing previously, and he has Stannis' trust. So for the first time, we get kind of their interaction and who these people are. Other than that, is there anything else in that first? I guess the only other thing that's kind of fun in that first episode for me is the whole interaction. There's a scene between Cersei and Baelys where Littlefinger tries to so that he tries to play some cards, and he might try to blackmail Cersei a little bit. And she basically tells the guards to kill him, and then basically demonstrate, because he says something about knowledge is power, and power is power, and puts him in his place pretty good. So anything else from this episode that you really felt like was something you really wanted to talk about?
No, that pretty much covers it, Jason. Yeah, it's doesn't start out as fast as the first season did, for sure.
No, it's a lot of reintroduction of where these people are as opposed to story advancement. It's like finding you where people are as opposed to story advancement. There's just not a lot of forward movement. And I feel like that the early part of the season suffers from that quite a bit in terms of just storytelling wise.
Yeah, there's a lot of setup here and a lot of just kind of, this person's doing this at this time, but nothing really that important, so. All
right. Well, with that, let's move on to episode 2, which was titled The Nightlands. And in this episode, we meet, right off the bat, the first thing we meet is Arya meets one of the guys in the cage that we saw at the end of the third season that Yoren had told her to stay away from. And his name is Jaqen H'ghar. And I probably pronounced that wrong. I usually do. But there's really not much there other than we get an introduction, but that'll be he's kind of important later in the season. And then we get our first interaction early in that episode of Tyrion and Varys. And that becomes a very the other fun dynamic at King's Landing of there's Tyrion and Cersei scenes, and then these Tyrion and Varys where they don't really trust each other, but sort of realize they kind of need each other as the season goes along to play the game. And so that's a fun first interaction because Tyrion really doesn't trust him, and Varys just trying to fill out what kind of hand Tyrion is going to be and whether or not he can use Tyrion or work with Tyrion. And so that's a fun interaction.
No, I agree. It's like definitely. Sorry, Jason, I kind of lose my place here for a second. Yeah. So the interaction between those two, and like it's kind of this respectful place, but definitely a working relationship with one another as long as it keeps working for both of them, kind of relationship, right?
Yeah. And let's see, the other thing that kind of is important to this season's story is that we kind of skipped over in the first season was Theon talked Robb into sending him home to try to get his father to join him. So we see Theon arrive home, and Theon has all these expectations that he's going to get basically a hero's welcome back to Pike. And the reality is they don't really care. And, you know, like, and they treat him horribly when he comes home. Like,
nobody has any respect for him. He's not Ironborn.
Yeah, he's not a true Ironborn, and they just like, and his father like blames him for being a captive, sort of like it was Theon's fault that they took him away when it was his father's fault that they took him away. But yeah, they don't really. His father and his sister don't have any respect for him, and neither do any of the other people on Pike. And Theon thought he'd be coming home as a prince, and instead he's just this guy who's clearly doesn't know their ways anymore.
He's treated as a nobody, and as, you know, why should we respect this guy? And his dad basically, you know, his dad and his sister basically, you know, call him a wimp, and you know, disown him. They're like, you're just a big wimp now. And then he gets upset because he's like, you're the one that gave me away, and now I come back and you're calling me a wimp, right? Like,
So the only then the last thing that happens there is we have seen the Night's Watch at the end of season 1 was headed north of the Wall. They were going out to find the wildlings, and they stopped at this Craster's place, who has like all these wives who are his daughters, and it's really weird and creepy. And and Jon sticks his foot in his mouth a couple of times, which he's very good at in this season. And but at the end of the episode, we see Jon sees Craster take a baby into the woods and leave it, and we get our second glimpse of a White Walker before Craster actually knocks Jon out to end the episode. And the White Walker taking this baby, which we don't see what happens to it at this point, but so we get our second glimpse of the White Walkers in that episode. And it's just real brief, but we do get another glimpse of them. And kind of go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, we just get this one little blurb, and then all of a sudden, lights out for Jon as he's watching this guy, you know, as he's watching the Walker take away the baby. So it's very Game of Thronesy, where they're almost telling you something, and it's just that teaser. Keep watching. We'll show you more, right? Like,
there's more here, but we're not gonna tell you what it is. Hey, Thomas Churchill. I hadn't seen him in the chat yet, so. So with that, like I said, we want to spend most of our time here toward the end of the season. So we're going to move on to episode 3. This starts with, or was it episode 2? Maybe I may have it wrong in my notes. But we see our first scene of Bran seeing through the wolf's eyes. That becomes something like Bran wakes from a dream, but he's been dreaming he's inside his wolf. And the wolf is doing like normal wolf things. So he's not sure if it's a dream or if it's real or what. And so we get our first kind of glimpse of that. I guess technically that happened in episode 2. I have it written down here, but I think that actually happened in episode 2. But
so it does happen again here in this episode, and then he wakes up with the wolf about 3 inches away from his face.
Yeah, that's the one where the wolf is looking at him. Before he's looking through the wolf's eyes, and the wolf comes in and is looking at him asleep, and then he wakes up and the wolf's there.
Right. So these are important scenes for Brandon because he's not just now the Stark boy who's having dreams about a three-eyed bird, right? He's now showing that he has some sort of power, right? That he can take over animals, and he's young, so we're like, oh, first it starts out with dreams that start coming true, then it starts having visions. Now he's taking over animals, so starting to see Brandon develop here with this power.
Yes. The next thing that kind of happens in this is so there was a brief thing of basically John learning that Mormont knew that what Craster was doing with the babies and them getting kicked out of Craster's place, which is not really super important. But the other thing we see is Caitlin arrives at Renly's camp, King Renly, the other Baratheon brother, and she arrives there to try to get him to join basically forces with Robb to destroy the Lannisters. And in this beginning scene, we also meet Brienne for the first time as she kind of beats the crap out of Loras, Sir Loras. And so in a melee, so we get kind of her introduction. We get, go ahead.
She ends up being part of the Kingsguard.
Yeah, which for a woman is a big deal. Like, people can't really believe Renly does it, but yeah. So, but she shows herself to be fairly capable right off the bat. We also get a good scene later of our first real scene of Tyrion playing the game. We go back to King's Landing, and he basically tells Pycelle, Varys, and Baelish all a different story of what he's going to try to marry off Myrcella, his niece, in order to like get people to join his cause, to Dorne and the Greyjoys, and I forget what the other one that he says. But he's really going to do that, but he's also like trying to figure out who is the spy for Cersei, and so that who he can trust and who he can't with information. So we really see him play those three and learn that it's actually Grandmaster Pycelle that's the one that is telling his sister everything, as opposed to the other two. And so he basically kicks Pycelle off the small council because of it. So we really see how, much how good he is at playing the game that Ned never was in season 1.
Yeah, Ned is definitely not a game player. Ned was always the straight and narrow. He was the man of honor. He wouldn't play games like that. But Tyrion, he wants to know who's got his back and who's got a knife in his back, right? Like, so he's taking this point now. His dad's giving him all this power. He's going to use it to root out the bad seeds, undermine his sister, because Tyrion hates his sister just as much. Yeah. And one of the ways he's going to do it is by figuring out who her spies are.
Right. And then
this whole thing also really pissed off Baelish.
Yeah.
Like, Tyrion made a bunch of promises to him based around this lie, and then had it all snatched away. So
yeah, but he kind of makes it up to him a little bit, because he does send Baelish to meet with Caitlin in order to try to make the girls for Jaime, which sets up some stuff that happens later in the season. And they represent as though they have both girls, even though they only have Sansa. But and then so that Tyrion's always got multiple moves going on, as you can see in this episode, and it's really very interesting into how he tries to lead, and as opposed to what we've seen previously. What was the other thing? There's only like 2 other things that I really have from this episode that I see as important. One is we go back to Pike. We see that Theon's father is actually planning to attack the north rather than the Lannisters. And we see Theon with a letter to Robb warning him. And we see him make the choice to burn the letter and try to be what his father wants him to be instead of what he is to a certain degree. So we see him make that choice in this episode, which is important for everything that happens with him the rest of the season. And then the only other thing I have is at the end of the episode, where we go back to Arya and the Yoren and the traveling, trying to go to the wall or whatever. And she has an interesting discussion with the guy from the Night's Watch, Yoren. And basically, we see the origin of her list during this episode, because he talks about it, like that he would say the name of a man he wanted to kill every night before he goes to sleep until he did it, and then he had to go north, and that's how he became a member of the Night's Watch after he murdered this guy who had killed his brother. And we see the origin of her list, and then we also see her get captured by Lannister forces at the end of the episode, and she loses Needle for in this episode.
Yes, she gets captured, and she's not recognized by the men, but they bring her to like a place where they're holding a whole bunch of different prisoners, right?
Yeah.
And while they're there, on the way, he's one of the guards sees Needle, and he's like, "Oh, I always wanted a little sword like this," and steals it, which of course is very upsetting to Arya. This is a very personal item to her, as as Jon gave it to her, right?
Yeah. So. And that kind of leads us right into episode 4. Hopefully we're moving fairly quickly. Yeah. Things that happen. Go ahead.
No, we're doing about 5 minutes an episode. We're good.
Yeah, that's good. So episode 4 is another one that doesn't have a ton of stuff. We see, I think we'll jump to where we just left off, because even though it's later in the episode. So we see Arya at this place. They take her to Harrenhal, which is being held by the Lannisters. And we see all the prisoners. She's put in with a bunch of other prisoners, her and Gendry and Hot Pie. And we see these prisoners being tortured. The Mountain's in charge, and they're just treated horribly. They're not being anything done with them other than they're being tortured. And Tywin shows up to take charge of this place. And he basically, calls his men out for not putting these people to use, especially when he sees they're about to kill Gendry, who, as a trade and as a blacksmith, and could be helping them, and recognizes instantly that Arya's a girl and not a boy that she's pretending to be, and takes her as his cupbearer. And so that's a fun interaction for the rest of the season.
And it's a very, very interesting way that they were torturing and executing these prisoners.
Oh yeah,
I'll just say using rats.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Oh, that is just horrendous to even think about. They do.
I know.
The Tickler, I think what that guy's name is called, because
the Tickler, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big thing. The other things that happen there earlier in the episode, we see basically Joffrey kind of torturing Sansa and embarrassing her in public because Robb keeps winning all the battles, and he's trying to take it out on her, and Tyrion saves her. And we do see a fun scene of, I remember when I watched the show originally that I thought, how stupid is Sansa? But throughout the season, it impressed me rewatching it that Sansa's not stupid. She's still a little naive even at this point. But she always says she's a terrible liar. You can tell she's lying at all times, and so can everyone else. But she always says what she needs to say.
Yes.
And although she's smart enough to know that she has to play a role here, or things are going to end badly for her. So it's her only option is to say these things that everybody knows is a lie, because she's not a good liar. But she's smart enough that they can't catch her to use it against her. They can't catch her in her words to use them against her.
She's very careful of what she says, and this whole season definitely is not Sansa's season.
No.
There's not a lot of character development to her.
I
other
do
than being this person.
set some of the stuff that happens later, but at this stage, it's like, come on, Sansa. It's a little bit.
I know.
You want to see her take a step forward, and she's not really yet in a position where she can. She just keeps repeating the same kind of arc throughout the season.
She's really a vehicle to showcase Joffrey's cruelty.
Yeah.
Right. Stanza, is tortured by Joffrey, and we see as well that Cersei doesn't care about that, and that she knows that Stanza's playing a role. She's not fooled by it, but it really Stanza's role in this whole season is to make Joffrey look bad, right?
Yeah.
He is, showcase his cruelty.
Yeah. Let's see. What is so? The other thing is like, let's see. Renly and Stannis come face to face. So the two brothers meet, and basically both demand that the other one stand down and join their army and join their cause to be king. And Stannis is way outnumbered by Renly's forces because Renly has the Tyrells on his side.
Yes, so quite outnumbered.
And work it out. Go ahead.
No, yeah, go, bud.
So they're not going to work it out. Caitlyn kind of calls them out for like, you guys are brothers. You find a way to make this work. And like Stannis, you see, is very like obstinate and is not going to happen. This season does have. Is this the episode? I think this is the episode where, the first time I noted it. Like, if you watch Game of Thrones a lot, like. There's this fun little thing with Stannis and Davos throughout the seasons where, like, Davos will say something and Stannis corrects his grammar, like fewer when he Stannis will say less men or something. He's like fewer, and like under his breath, Stannis corrects everyone's grammar. And this is the first time you see it. It's just a fun quirk of Stannis' personality that like makes me laugh whenever I see it. But basically, Stannis sends Davos with the Red Woman at the end of the episode during the night up onto the bluffs near the Renly's encampment, and like she appears to be pregnant and she gives birth to this shadow creature, and you're like, what the bleep is happening right now? And we don't actually see really what happens till the next episode, which this is like the last part of that episode, and I don't think there's really anything else in here to cover that's really important. So, in the next episode opens with this shadow creature coming into Renly's tent while Caitlyn and Brienne are with him talking about things, and this shadow that appears to be Stannis actually, like, kills Renly in the night before the battle. And Brienne actually takes the blame for it, like gets blamed for it. She has to flee with Caitlyn. And we see like in the aftermath, all of Renly's forces, except for the Tyrells, join Stannis, and the Tyrells actually have to flee as well. Marjorie and Loras have to flee as well.
Yes. So definitely a very, like the last scene where she gave birth to the smoke monster really came out of left field, and then all of a sudden he turns around and kills one of the main characters, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's pretty crazy, right? And this sets off a big chain of events actually, because now Stannis has enough men to attack King's Landing.
And it's the first time in the season, like we've seen like her like survive the poison, and we've seen dragons, and we've seen these weird White Walker creatures and stuff, but it's the first time we truly see like what could be described as magic, in a real way. I mean, there's the scene with the witch and Drago at the end of season 1 that sort of implies magic, but you don't really see it. And this is the first time you really see something that's truly like, this is dark magic that's happening right now, and in this world.
So yeah, they really start to bring on magic in this second season.
Yeah.
And there's something that happens. We'll talk about it because it happens in a few episodes.
Right.
That one of the characters says that why this is happening, why magic is all of a sudden coming into the world again.
Right. Well, I think it was actually like may have already. Well, they talk about the comet, and that was an earlier thing or whatever, meaning dragons at one point. But yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm thinking of the wrong thing now that I realize what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
And so we see that. We do see a scene like in the aftermath of that. We see this. There's a scene between Baelish and the Tyrells as they're fleeing, where he has an interaction with Marjorie, and he's like, "Well, you want him to be queen or whatever," and she's like, "No, I want to be the queen." Which sets up some stuff that, like, you can see that Marjorie is not deterred by the fact that her king, that she was married to, that just to be queen didn't make it. She's still going to be. She still wants to be queen, whatever it takes to a certain degree. And then
most people would be shocked if their husband was just killed by a smoke monster, which she kind of takes it in stride.
Yeah, and then so the other aspect of that comes out of it though is Davos basically confronts Stannis about the black magic and basically talks Stannis out of taking the Red Woman as they get ready to go toward King's Landing. In that battle, that also kind of happens as a result in this scene of that. What happened at the beginning of this, he basically talks him out of taking her with them when they go for the battle at King's Landing. Let's see, other things that were really fun in this, or important in this episode. Fun. We get our first like Tywin Arya scene, and basically he. Can you hear me still? Wait a minute. Then what the heck?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Somehow I got on mute. I don't know what was happening there. So
yeah, sorry, that was weird. I just all of a sudden you
I was having it like the light came on and it said I was on mute, and I'm like, but I haven't touched anything. So I don't know what anybody heard there, but she finds out that Jaqen H'ghar says that the owes her 3 lives or whatever, and she's not sure what that really means. So she gives him the name of the Tickler, the guy that was torturing everybody. And at the end of the episode, we see he's dead. And so she realizes that this guy is actually going to kill people for her if she wants to use it. Yeah, very creepy. We've kind of like abandoned Dany's storyline throughout this. And really not much happens here again. She's been taken into the city of Qarth and basically under the wing of this Zoran something Doxus guy. But yeah, there's who basically wants to marry her because he wants her dragons, but she's not going to. She's kind of just going around asking everybody for help and not really earning it. So, but
JP
plays a role later.
JP?
Yeah.
Sorry, but I got to interrupt you half a second. It looks like the camera is stuck on me now.
It is stuck on you now. Okay, what has happened here? I didn't. touch anything. Now it's probably stuck on me. So how do I get it where it present to everyone? Oh no, I didn't want to do that.
There you go. Now you're back.
Yeah, but talk and see if it goes back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking to see if it goes back. No.
So somehow I've gotten it. What has happened here? This is weird. Oh. All right, now let's see what's happening.
Let's see your cat in the background.
Okay, it went back to you when you talk now. I think I don't know what, like I wasn't touching the mouse. I'm not sure what happened here.
I'm not doing anything, man. It's just.
Now I got the mute done and everything else. So, so let's see. Other things in this episode. Bran basically pledges to serve Catelyn. And then Bran has this vision of seeing the sea come to Winterfell and like drown everyone. And I have no idea what this is. I don't want to see that. Get the chat back up. And like Osha won't tell him what that means, even though she seems to kind of know what that means, or knows that it means more than just a dream. And we see later in the episode the Theon's forces basically attack and take Winterfell. So like he'd seen the sea come to Winterfell, and then that's the next episode. Sorry. So, but we see he has a vision of the sea overwhelming Winterfell, and so with that we kind of go to the next episode, and it opens with episode 6 opens with Theon and his Greyjoy forces taking control of Winterfell, because there's nobody there to protect it really, even though he only has like 20 men.
Yeah, so they set up, there's an attack to the south against one of the Stark allies. So they send off a couple hundred men and basically evacuate all of Winterfell's soldiers. And Theon just steps in with the door open, right?
Yeah, basically they attacked another place. All the remaining soldiers at Winterfell ride off, and Theon just kind of walks in the door and like, I'm the Lord of Winterfell now. Like, which is, I'm having enough problems with the internet. I don't need you. We see like Jon go off with the half hands to basically try to kill Mance Rayder, the king north of the king above the wall. I forget what it's called. King north of the wall, or king above the wall, or whatever they call him. So they're going to basically try to assassinate him because all the wildlings have joined him and made this massive army. And so Jon like leaves the rest of the Night's Watch to go off with him. And they end up capturing or coming across some wildlings. They kill all of them, but Jon realizes the one he's about to kill is a girl, and he sort of wimps out. And so they capture her instead, but they can't keep her. So Qhorin Halfhand, who's like this really famous ranger and is, really well respected, basically asks him if he wants him to do it. And Jon's like, no, I'll do it. So Qhorin and the other Night's Watch guys go off, leave Jon to do it, and he can't do it. He wimps out. And the result is she tries to escape. He has to chase her, and he loses contact with the rest of the guys he's with, which really Jon just makes mistake after mistake during this whole series of episodes of trying to be noble and not wanting to kill this girl. And he just does a lot of stupid stuff that gets him in trouble.
Yeah, this isn't the best episode for Jon. He does make a lot of mistakes here. I just keep thinking, good things are coming for this guy. Right?
You hope so. So Other things that we see here, we see Marcella like leave for Dorne, and we see Cersei actually threaten Tyrion that she's going to take someone he loves away, which this threat becomes, Cersei's not known for going back on her word. Lannisters pay their debts, and so she's got a threat on Tyrion for this. And then after the scene, we see like Joffrey walking through the city, and the peasants basically hate Joffrey because they're all starving because of the war. And one of them throws like a cow pie at him, and he like freaks out and says, "Kill them all," which causes the peasants to then attack his very small guard. And we see basically that almost all of them almost get killed. They do escape. Tyrion like smacks the crap out of him, like, stop being an idiot. And Sansa almost gets raped and murdered by these peasants, but is saved by the Hound. And so that's just kind of you just see how not just is Joffrey cruel, but he's dumb. And like they're really just driving home that he is just unfit for, if you didn't already know, he's just unfit to be a leader of any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, he really thinks that being king means you can just do whatever you want and nobody's going to complain about it because you're king. Yeah. But now he's starting to see that his actions have repercussions, and the city isn't behind him, and they're throwing cow pies at him, and so he wants to kill them all for throwing a piece of shit at them. And it's like a little bit of an overreaction, pal.
Yeah. Let's see what else was in this episode. I have another fun interaction just of Tywin and Arya where they're talking about their fathers or whatever, and he asks her what killed her father, and she says loyalty.
Yeah, that's a good line.
Yeah, and then which it gets him to say again, you're how smart she is, but she tries to steal like a message that related to her brother's troop movements and read it, and gets caught with it. And we see her like she's gonna get ratted out, but she runs to Jaqen and is like, "I need you to kill him now." And we see him like pull off another murder like that. And so this guy has truly got skills that we're not fully understanding at this point. And then the last thing that really happens is obviously Robb is we see that Osha and Hodor basically help Bran and Rickon escape from under Theon's nose and get out of Winterfell. So we see them escape is the last part of this episode. Anything else there that we didn't talk about that you see is kind of important?
No, I think you covered it there.
Okay.
Where we at?
See, episode 7, A Man Without Honor, which, like, if you watch this episode, but really it's Theon that they're talking about is A Man Without Honor. And so basically, goes through some things, and we see Robb still falling for this girl that he's not supposed to marry because he's got he's made obligations elsewhere. We basically see Jon actually get captured by the wildlings, and as a result of his getting lost, we see that the other Night's Watch brothers are dead, except for the half hand who's also been captured. And it's basically because they were looking for Jon. Let's see, is there anything else?
Did we talk about? Yeah, we did. Daenerys getting her dragon stolen last time.
Oh, did I forget that? I thought that was this episode. Did I have that in the wrong episode? I was thinking this was this episode.
Sure, that happens episode 6.
Oh.
Just at the end of it.
Oh, yeah. I did have that. I just missed that. It was right at the bottom of my page here. Yes. So, yeah. So Daenerys returns back to the place where she's been begging people for ships, and no one's going to, like, help her. And she returns back to Zoran Dox's home or whatever where she's been staying, and her dragons have been. A lot of her people have been killed, and her dragons have been stolen. So yeah, I did miss that. Sorry. So we actually in this episode we see that. Do we have the payoff of that of who stole them in this episode? Yes. So basically, it's revealed that the guy who's been hosting her the whole time is working with this weird warlock character we've seen throughout the episodes in Korth. They stole her dragons, and they actually kill everyone else who is part of the 13, which rule over Korth. And basically try to capture her, and she has to kind of flee. Her and Jorah have to flee from them in order to. But these are the men that have her dragons in the House of the Undying, is what they call it, or whatever. And so that kind of sets up the end of her story for the season.
So the House of the Undying is like the Wizards Guild.
Yeah, it's like the Wizards Guild in that city. Hey, Make the Snake. We are in the episode 7 here, so we're moving a little faster than we did last week of season 2. Let's see, what else do we have? Where was my other thing? We see Jamie's cousin gets put into him in the pen, and we basically see they have this really interesting conversation of basically his cousin saying, Jamie doesn't remember him. And then he's like, well, I actually squired for you once. And you can see how much this kid looks up to Jamie. And they go through this whole thing, and they're talking, and Jamie tells him the story about how when he was a squire and how he was terrible at it and everything else. But the result is Jamie's just trying to get this kid close enough to him so he can kill him to try to escape. And that's what he does. He kills his own cousin to get the guard to come in so he can kill the guard, get the keys, and escape. And it's, you really see how ruthless Jamie really is. That he doesn't really think twice about it. He's just going to do what needs to be done to get out of there.
Yeah, and it's like the scene is pretty good too, where it seems like they had set up this like kind of nice rapport with one another, and they were getting close and memories and stuff. And all of a sudden, Jamie just out of the blue kills him. So,
yeah, it's just like, Jamie doesn't care about this kid. This kid's a Lannister. He's a cousin, and Jamie's just like, you're a means to an end. But they've set it up that that's not at all the case of what's going on there. And then, where am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something here. So the other thing that's been going on this whole episode is Theon's been hunting for Bran and Rickon. And basically they lose their trail near this farmhouse where this farmer and these 2 orphan boys are. And basically at the end of the episode, like they send them away, and then at the end of the episode, it shows Theon with these 2 burned bodies of these boys. Only you're shown as a viewer like that he's representing as Bran and Rickon, that he killed the 2 Stark boys. But you see that they're actually in hiding, and they like with Osha and Hodor that they're alive, but Theon has basically faked their deaths in order to like make it look like he didn't let them escape,
which is a big mistake.
Yeah,
because now everybody hates him because they think he's a child murderer.
Yeah, and like it's just this, like literally the dumbest thing he could do. He'd be better off that they escaped. But yeah, he just continues to make stupid mistakes this whole season. He's really just sort of an idiot. I mean, it's just really dumb.
He's like one of those guys that just tries too hard.
Yeah. And then there's this other scene. The only other thing I had for this, so we see Jamie escaped. He gets caught. and like Lord Karstark, whose son was the guard that he killed, getting out, wants his head, Rob's away, and we see Catelyn and Brienne go in with him and talk to him. And that's kind of where the story ends there for Jaime. But the other thing that happens in this episode is I've lost my spot here. Sorry. The Theon fakes her death. What was it? There was something else I was. Oh, there's a really good scene between Cersei and Tyrion where they're talking about how Joffrey and that he doesn't listen to her and that she knows he's not really cut out to be king, even though he's her son. And she basically admits to Tyrion that what everyone suspects is true, that they're Jaime's, that they're, and you can see like Tyrion, like she doesn't have anyone else to like talk to, so she's talking to her brother who she despises. And Tyrion wants to comfort her, but he doesn't know how because he doesn't really like her. And it's just another really good scene between those two that just like they just kill it every time. They're just so good, and they're so good together, and they're playing off each other. It's just a fantastic scene of like these two siblings that just have never seen eye to eye, and they don't even know how to like comfort each other or be there for each other. And it's just a really good scene.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like every scene between those two are just, like I said, the tense. It's always tense. Like they don't. At points they can have sort of an understanding with one another, but really, it's just fire and ice between those two.
So with that, we are to episode 8. So we did not get through these quite as quick as I'd hoped, but
we're doing all right. We're doing all right.
We're not doing too bad. So episode 8, basically we see Theon's sister arrive at Winterfell, and basically her and her men mock him for being the idiot that he is, for killing the Stark boys. But you also see this really interesting dynamic of she wants to help him. She wants him to live. She does care for her brother, but she's not, but she's like, you're an idiot. She wants to help him, but she's not going to like stay and fight a losing battle. That she's like, everyone in the North is going to want you dead now because of what you've done, and I can't help you.
And it's not really because of what she's done, but like it is. But in a lot of ways, she feels really sorry for Theon, and I could tell that she, loves him as a brother. She wants him as a brother. But she can't show weakness to any of her men by trying to coddle him or bring him along, right?
No.
She has to be this strong woman in this whole world. So in private, she tends to have more tender moments with him,
right?
But in front of all of her men, it's she's just
ruthless when she has to be. And and as a woman trying to lead these men, she doesn't have a choice. That's how she has to be at all times, or they will lose respect for her. So, so other things that happen here, we basically see like the half hand kind of lay the seeds for like with Jon as they're captured that they need someone inside Mance's army, someone trusted, and Jon's like, how will he ever trust me? And we see where the half hand's plan is to get Jon trusted by the wildlings. That he basically starts kind of fighting with him, and we see that there's something, he's got a plan. We see basically Robb discover that the end result of Catelyn and Brienne going in with Jaime is because she knows if Jaime stays there, they're probably going to kill him after what he's done trying to escape. So and she knows that probably means the end for her daughters, that she decides to send Brienne with Jaime to King's Landing to try to get her daughters back without talking to Robb. And the result is Robb basically loses trust in her and puts her under guard in the camp and sends men out to capture Jaime and Brienne and bring them back. so there's a big breakdown in his trust of his mother in this episode, and it really leads to him basically completely falling for this girl, and that he's been kind of seeing and in love with anyway.
So just to chime in there, yeah, he's really upset. It seems like he's really upset with his mom about sending, for the prisoner exchange without his permission. But I think deep down, Rob's kind of glad that this happened because he's not going to get blamed for trading Jamie for two boys. Right now, he can blame it on his mother, but still get his brothers back.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there is he's putting some of it. He's putting on a front, but there's also as you'll see, with the decision he makes later in the season, that he's also kind of not going to listen to her now because of that she did this without talking to him. He's still struggling with being a king at a relatively young age and trying to take on this responsibility, and wanted to be able to trust her. That he feels a little bit betrayed, but I also think betrayed yet relieved. It's kind of a weird line that he's walking, and I would agree with you on that.
There's definitely a betrayal. He feels betrayed that she did this behind his back, defying her ruler, and she's not. But he's not so mad at what she did as the fact that she did it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He's relieved kind of what's going to happen because of what she did, but what she did, the way she did it, really upset him,
right? Other things here that are really kind of important before the last two episodes. We see Jaqen ask Arya for the last name, and we've seen actually in the last episode, I forgot to mention it, this episode, Tywin leaves, and she can't find Jaqen to give him that name before Tywin leaves, so she waited too long to give him Tywin's name, and then he asks her for the last name, and she gives him his own, but she's like, you have to take that back, and she's like, I'll only take it back if you let us escape, and he's like, well, that's more lives, but he ends up helping her, Gendry, and Hot Pie escape from Harrenhal, in order to get her to take back saying his name for the third life.
Yeah, it was a bit underhanded of Arya to do this, but it worked because she needed help to get away.
Yes. It's the only way she's going to get away.
She's been playing this role for a while now, but sooner or later she knows she's going to get caught.
Yeah.
And she has to get out of there.
The other kind of playing a role we see is we see Cersei kind of try to play back her when she finds out that Tyrion wants Joffrey to be out inspiring the men during the coming battle with Stannis' army. She basically makes good on her threat, and she brings in this whore that she thinks Tyrion's in love with that turns out to be Raz and not Shay. So she's got the wrong one. But during this whole interchange, Tyrion makes a threat. And he says that one of these days, when you feel safest and at your happiest, your joy will turn to ash and you'll know this debt has been paid. So he makes a very specific threat to his sister that
I really like this, right? I really like this threat that he gives her because it hasn't paid off yet.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm expecting to see payoff from that line here in this last season.
Yeah. So, and basically that's all we see that's really important.
One more thing.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking at the very end of the episode, Tyrion and Bronn go down into the catacombs because they hear rumor of the
wildfire.
The wildfires being made down there, and they have the old man who's making the leader of the order, who's making the wildfire show. It's just an entire room full of thousands and thousands of jars of this wildfire in this room.
Yeah, and Tyrion basically says, "You work for me. You're not making it for my sister anymore. You work for me."
You work for me. All right.
All right. So that brings us to episode 9, which is sort of always the big one with Game of Thrones. And this is the first time we have an episode that's all focused on one kind of location in the entire series. We don't jump back and forth. This is all the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Stannis has arrived at King's Landing, and the whole episode is surrounding this battle. And like, so we see coming in. Go ahead.
No, you go. I just laugh because I know it's a good comment.
Yeah, so we see at the beginning, like, we see kind of preparations on both sides at the beginning of the episode. And then the bells ring that the ships are on their way. And we see kind of like Stannis' navy kind of coming into the bay. And they're like, and you see Davos questioning, where are their ships? There's no ships defending the bay. And we see Joffrey, like, at the same, like, moments, basically at the same time, actually questioning Tyrion, where are our ships? Why aren't we defending ourselves? And basically Tyrion has a plan. And what we see is one ship comes out, unmanned, drifts into the middle of all of the front line of Stannis' ships, and Davos realizes who's leading the attack too late what it is, and basically the ship, he's loaded all the wildfire onto this ship. They're dumping the liquid into the bay behind them. Bronn shoots a flaming arrow into it, and this truly, for like TV, spectacular
explosion
that just like wrecks a huge portion of Stannis' fleet right off the bat, and really like slows down and gives them a chance to defend themselves when they're way outnumbered against Stannis, right off the bat. This really great, like, instead of using the wildfire in a reckless manner of just trying to launch it from the walls and stuff, Tyrion comes up with a way to use it to really be as effective as possible. And it's truly a spectacular scene.
Oh, beyond spectacular, this massive green fireball, and the reactions from all the characters as they didn't expect the explosion to be that big. You could tell they were like, holy smokes, like we overdid it a bit. And then they cut to this little scene of the little maester that makes the stuff. And he's got this like just grin on his face, like, I told you. Not surprised. That's up, right? Like this whole, and then like fires everywhere, and there's men screaming and burning and trying to jump into the ocean and put themselves out. And of course, the Hound is there watching all this. And you can see just how nervous this makes him.
Yeah, he does not like fire.
He is terrified of fire. And of course, now the bay is on fire. So the the Baratheons army has to divert to a little farther up the beach to land, right? They can't get past all this fire.
Yeah.
And now they're going to have to face arrows for quite a farther distance coming up to the gates.
Yeah. So it really like helps slow down any like the attack, and in addition to taking out all the men on those boats, it like really like puts Stannis in a more difficult position to actually invade and take King's Landing. So from there we see like he does, Stannis' troops do land. They do like start to attack the gates. We see the Hound go out and fight, and he's already like, we've already seen him like really freak out by the thing. But this man comes running up to him who's on fire. Like, and like this guy is just burning right in front of the Hound. And like you see like the Hound just, he's done. He like just walks off the battlefield, goes back inside the walls and basically says,
screw you guys, I'm going home.
Yeah, screw you guys, I'm going home. And just, he's out. He's done. And so the Hound leaves. You see this kind of like Joffrey's already freaking out, like, because he's not brave. He's a coward. Despite all his penchant for violence and everything else, he's truly a coward. And we see the other thing we see during this is Lancel gets injured which is another Lannister cousin or whatever, and goes to Cersei to report the battle or whatever. She tells him to go get Joffrey and bring him inside. And Joffrey uses this as an excuse to walk off the battlefield and basically go hide. Because he's not a soldier, he's not brave, and it kind of like crushes the morale of all the troops that their king is leaving. So it puts Tyrion in this position of someone has to lead in his place.
My boy Tyrion steps up,
and he does. And I was watching like the commentary after the episode, and they talk about that it wasn't in the script, but he has this great Peter did it, and it was like this great moment because when he realizes, it's like he says to himself at first, he goes under his breath, it's like, I'll lead the attack, and you see his face like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to. That's what I'm gonna have to do, and it's like, and then he says it louder, and he gives a speech that is just really amazing, and I love that. Those are brave men knocking on our door. Let's go kill them, and it's just,
great speech. Really rallies the troops behind him. Like, I'm a half a man, but you still follow me, and he gives them the whole deal, and they actually rally behind him, and he leads them into battle.
Yeah, he leads them into battle. They basically destroy the ram that was knocking down the gate. It's coming, and so they're still like way outnumbered and in trouble. But then he like turns, and I guess before we get to that, we get to the kind of the end of the outside battle. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, like inside, Cersei has been like pinned up with all the women and drinking heavily, and basically just torturing Sansa, just like in every way that she can, like just saying all these terrible things to Sansa. But we see her like when she realizes that like word comes to her that the battle may be lost, which is when Joffrey like leaves the battlefield before Tyrion pulls his attack. We see her like leave where all the women are hiding at and go get Tommen, and they go to the throne room. And we've seen early in the episode like she had gotten poison from Grand Maester Pycelle. So Cersei had no plans to be taken alive. So we see that. We also see like Shae, who's been hiding as Sansa's handmaiden all season, tells Sansa like, go hide in your room, bar the door, don't let anyone in. She's like, Stannis won't hurt you, but these people will if the city falls. Like, and she's referring specifically to Ilyn Payne, who's basically there to like kill them so that Stannis can't get to them. And so Sansa flees to her room only to find the Hound in her room.
Yes.
And
she knows the Hound. The Hound's already saved her once, right? He's the guy that came and saved her from being raped.
And she's still like freaked out a little bit by the Hound, because like she doesn't like looking at him or whatever. But he's like, we've seen throughout the season, the end of last season and this season, that he actually has a soft spot for her. He's tried to protect her on multiple occasions, and he offers to take her to Winterfell. He's like, I'm leaving. I will take you north. And she doesn't take the offer because she doesn't fully trust him, even though she probably should at this point. But she doesn't go with it.
Again, she's still a little naive about her situation.
Yes.
Right? She doesn't think she's in that much danger. She knows that she doesn't like Joffrey. She knows he's cruel, but she doesn't personally feel like she's in danger.
Right.
I guess after the beating in the throne room, she might change her mind a bit. So I don't know. To me, I was kind of half expecting her to go with the Hound when I first watched that one.
Yeah.
And she didn't. I was like, oh, okay, well.
It's really like, you would think she would. Yeah. It was kind of like, because she even says something about not being afraid of him, and yet she doesn't go with him. And it's like, dumb mistake, Sansa. One of many dumb mistakes some of the main characters make during this season. So I think that's all the stuff that's kind of important that happens away from the battlefield. so we see like so Tyrion, like they're back under attack by more of Stannis' men after they've kind of gotten their small victory, and Tyrion comes face to face, like kills a man, and then like turns around and he's face to face with one of the King's Guard, and he kind of lets his guard down. And Sir, I forget which one he is, but he's one of like Joffrey's King's Guard, and the guy tries to kill him, and like slashes him across the face. And if it's not for Tyrion's Squire Podrick killing him from behind, seeing what's happening and killing the King's Guard, Tyrion would die right here.
Now that guy who was the King's Guard, Tyrion had threatened him before.
Yes.
So he didn't like Tyrion one bit. He was waiting for an opportunity like this.
But as Tyrion's laying there basically and Podrick's trying to protect him and potentially dying, we see Tywin and the Tyrells and Laura and Renly's army arrive and basically chase Stannis off, force his men to retreat. Stannis doesn't want to retreat, but his men are retreating and they drag him away. And the battle is won. But we flash back to Cersei sitting on the Iron Throne with Tommen, about to give him the poison, thinking they're gonna about to kill her son to keep him from being killed by Stannis, when her father and the Tyrells come into the throne room.
Yeah, so I mean, Stannis's men were basically bashing down the door the last time she knew, right? Like she figured the next people to go into the throne room was going to be him.
Yeah.
So I was quite a relief to see your father walk through the door.
Yeah. So that takes us through episode 9, the Battle of the Blackwater. And episode 10 is really a lot of fallout from that. We see that it opens with Tyrion being cared for by Grandmaster Pycelle, this person that he basically threw in the dungeon earlier in the season and stripped of his position. And he's in these dingy quarters, and basically his father has kicked him to the curb. You serve your purpose, I'm here now, I don't need you, kind of thing.
A lot of bad fathers in Game of Thrones.
Yes, there's a lot of bad fathers in Game of Thrones. And then we have this really terrible scene, but it's the acting is terrible, but it's they're all putting on this show of basically that Joffrey's gonna where he honors Tywin, and then he honors the Tyrells, and he's gonna marry Marjorie instead of the Sansa, and it's just this terrible, they're all playing this role for the small folk or whatever but this has all been worked out beforehand of getting Joffrey off of marrying Sansa and marrying Marjorie, and it's just so goofy and terrible that it's just but the end result is Sansa is leaving, and you can see for the first time all season she lets her guard down, and she's truly happy she's not gonna have to marry Joffrey, when Baelish kind of intercepts her and gives her the reality that they're still not going to send her home, that she's not off the hook just because she's not marrying Joffrey. Her life is not going to get better, but offers to help her, which kind of puts his hooks into her for the first time in the series, that Baelish is kind of going after Sansa to a certain degree.
Yeah, he always has ulterior motives, right?
Yes, always.
One of the things we did learn about him this season is that he's in love with Caitlyn.
Yes. Yeah.
So this dealing with Sansa isn't altruistic for him. It's another way, I believe, for him to be getting closer to Caitlyn.
Yeah. So that's kind of the opening scene and kind of the fallout of the battle. We see next thing we really kind of see is Brienne and Jaime on the road to King's Landing, and they come across these women that have been hanged or whatever, and Jaime's kind of taunting her, but then they come across these Stark soldiers, basically, and they recognize Jaime, and she kills them like easily, like 3-on-1, and she kills him quick and easy. And you can see on Jaime's face that he's impressed with how good she is despite himself. Like, because he's been just taunting her the whole trip. And, like, when he sees her kill these 3 guys, he's like, okay, she's actually got some skills. So that's kind of a fun little interaction we get to see between them that sets up a lot of what happens between them in season 3. We see Robb break his vow and marry this girl that he's been chasing after basically all of season 2. Break his vow to marry one of Walder Frey's daughters, and get married. We see Stannis like basically freaking out after he lost the battle because he's been told he's the chosen one by the Red Woman, but her basically talk her way into getting him to continue to believe her. What else happens that's kind of early that's just kind of fallout? So from there, the other thing we see, we get the end of Theon's storyline kind of for the season. Basically, he's surrounded by Northmen now, and the Maester tries to tell him like, sneak out, head to the wall. Like, I've seen you raised, Theon. I don't want to see you die here. Sneak out, go to the wall, take the black. It's your only hope. But Theon refuses, and he tries to rally his troops to to fight the Stark or the Northmen, and his troops just betray him. They knock him out and like are going to turn him over. So bad things for Theon the end of the season. We do see Tyrion and Varys, and basically Varys tells Tyrion that Cersei's the one that tried to have him killed on the battlefield.
Which doesn't surprise Tyrion, of course.
That doesn't surprise Tyrion at all. And let's see, what else happens here? We see Arya, like, having escaped from Harrenhal, sees Jaqen H'ghar on the road that her and Gendry and thing, and he basically offers her to come with him to Braavos and become a faceless man, which is what he is. And we've heard that name before, but we still don't really know what it means. And
well, says, I mean, by this time we obviously know it's some kind of assassin.
Yeah, we know it's some kind of assassin. We don't fully understand like the full extent of it at this point. And he basically says, well, if you change your mind, and he gives her a coin, and he gives her a phrase, in which I'm probably going to mispronounce, even though Valar Morghulis, and that's not right, but
I think you're pretty close.
Yeah, and he makes her say it like a couple of times. He's like, say this to any man and from Braavos, and they will bring you to me, and we will, and if you ever change your mind. And then
not just like go to this guy. Any man.
Any man. Yeah. Any man from Braavos will know what that means. And then he turns to go. He turns away from her. And when he turns back around, he has a different face. He looks completely different. And he basically said, same voice, says, goodbye, Arya Stark, and walks away. And it's just like, what the heck just happened? Like, you know, how did he do that? Because he just turns for a second, and then he turns back around, and it's a completely different guy. And so that's kind of the end of her story for the season. Anything else?
Daenerys.
Yeah.
So Daenerys.
To the Daenerys. So she arrives at the House of the Undying to get her dragons. And she goes in, like, basically, and they separate her from Jorah and her guard, her Dothraki guard. So it's just her. And she goes in and she starts having these visions. Like, the first one, she's approaching the Iron Throne, and the throne room looks like it's been burned, like the ceiling's gone, and it's winter and there's snow. and she kind of walks through there, and then she goes.
There was like a little point where she seems like she's having a vision.
Yeah.
And she walks out of behind the wall.
Yeah.
And there's these kind of creatures that she could see off in the distance.
Yeah. And then she sees a tent.
And then a tent.
And she goes in. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. She goes in and she sees Drago and her son, what her son would have been, and I think as much as anything, the Vision is trying to like show her something that she wants so she won't leave or whatever. But she keeps going. She leaves Drago and her son because she knows it's not real. And she kind of returns to this room that she'd already been in, and her dragons are there. And basically the next thing she knows, she's chained, and here's this warlock guy. And he basically admits what we talked about before is when the dragons return, their magic returned, and like they want to keep her and the dragons under their control permanently because they draw. The stronger they are, that they can draw. The closer they are to the dragons, the more magical power they have.
But not only just like how close you are to them, but now the dragons are back. Magic is back over the entire realm.
Yeah,
right? That's why all of a sudden we're seeing Bran having visions. So all of a sudden we're seeing this Red Witch, and her abilities. So magic is kind of making a comeback. And the bigger the dragons are getting, the more the magic is coming back.
The more powerful the magic will be, yes. So, but Daenerys basically turns the table on him, and for the first time we see her dragons actually breathe fire, and they set this guy up. They burn this guy, set him on fire, and she basically walks out with her dragons. And
they burn the chains, they burn the guys, they burn the chains. And she just basically strolls out of there, realizes who the real person is that stole her dragons.
Yes. And she already knew that, but she realizes who the real person is. But she also strolls out and realizes that that she's gonna have to rely on herself going forward. And so she goes back to the guy who'd been her host and had bragged the whole season about how rich he was and how powerful he was, and he had this vault or whatever. And they go and open the vault, and they find out he's a fraud. Like, he doesn't have all this money. It's all a show. It's all fake. And, and basically she comes to the realization of, you know what, I'm going to have to do this myself. I can't rely on these other people to give me what I need if I'm going to succeed. It's going to be me and my dragons, and I'm going to have to take what I want, and I'm going to have to do it myself. And she basically locks this guy in his vault with this girl who was her servant that betrayed her. And that's kind of how her story ends for season 2. It's her walking out with her dragons with a lot more self-confidence in who she is and who she's going to be.
She's definitely taking on that leader role now, right? Like she is really starting to come into a leader.
Yeah. And then the other thing that happens right at the end of the episode is we see basically the half-hand basically calling Jon a traitor, attacking him. He and the wildlings letting them fight. Jon killing the half-hand. And basically the wildlings like using that to like, okay, this guy has betrayed the Night's Watch. Ygritte's been kind of speaking up for him this whole time. And they actually cut his ropes. And they show him, they look over the thing down at this huge encampment of wildlings. And she's basically that now it's time to meet the king beyond the wall. And so that's kind of how Jon's story ends. I think that's it. Is there anything else kind of?
No, that's got it. I mean, you definitely, Jon gained the respect of a lot of the wildlings at the end there.
Yeah.
And it kind of fades to black. Overall impression of this season, for me, it's probably my least favorite season out of all of them.
I would say, me too. I think the pacing in this season is probably the worst. I feel like the first 5 to 6 episodes are really slow.
like number 2 and number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really slow. There's a lot of stuff that like love story that really doesn't really pan out anywhere.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of this, it took, like, they built up the whole season to get to basically the Battle of Blackwater Bay, but I felt like timing wise, in terms of episodes, that should have been like 5th episode in terms of how much story there was to tell.
Yeah, again, they're saving it for their 9th.
Yeah,
it did feel like it was kind of forced into that 9th spot. Like it could have happened earlier in the season.
Yeah, I just feel like they drug it out a lot longer than they needed to. I mean, overall, it was still good. It had some fantastic moments in it, but it definitely is, if not my least favorite season, right there. And I think it probably is my least favorite as well. But it's definitely one of the bottom, for me, tier seasons. Because I feel like we spent a lot of time following people make stupid mistakes. Theon and John, and to a lesser extent Rob, and there was a lot of like, why are you doing this? This doesn't make and Danny, to a certain degree, making some mistakes and trying to rely on these people she didn't know. And like there was a lot of
I agree. There was lots of like just people doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And paying for it. And then they did have some new character introductions, but they didn't take those characters very far in this season either. Right. So there's not a lot of development for the new characters either. So it really just felt like more of a filler season, except for the last 2 episodes, which were really quite great.
Yeah, the last 2 episodes are really good. But
Other than that, the first 2 episodes of this season really lacked a good pace, really dragged. And if you're out there and you're trying to get through all the seasons to get to before the premiere of the new one comes out, this is definitely one you could skip a bunch out of.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because there's not a lot that happens here that is critical down the road. I mean, there's a few moments, but there's not a ton.
I mean, and there's always lots of little things that are very, very cool in all these episodes from Game of Thrones. It's one of the reasons that it has so many fans.
Right.
Even the small details are really cool. So it's worth watching. But it's just, most seasons I'm going to give like an 8 or a 9 to, and this season I'm probably going to give more like a 7.5 or 7.
Yeah, that would be me too. I would agree. And I think this is a season that you could get away with like watching the recaps as opposed to watching all the episodes.
Yeah. Like I said, I would definitely watch the last 2, the Blackwater Battle and stuff, because they are really great episodes, both visually just to watch and exciting and good pacing and stuff. And there's a few things along the way that I did like. You said some of the interactions between Cersei and Tyrion, some of the setup for Arya. I thought that was all really good, well done. But there's lots of stuff that I'd probably have left out if I was the scriptwriter.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's great moments, but as a whole, this season is not quite up to the Game of Thrones standard. I think the really high bar that most of the other seasons set, and it is a very high bar. So
yes, there's some fantastic seasons coming up.
In terms of timing, we talked about this a little bit. With PlanetCon this weekend, I'm not sure I will get through season 3 by Monday or Tuesday of next week. So I will just kind of make an announcement a few days before of when we're going to do this again. I'll be in touch. You and I will be in touch, Instagram and that kind of stuff, and we'll line out a day that works for both of us. And we will hopefully sometime early next week get to season 3. I'm just not sure what the timing is going to be. So
sounds good. I'm up for it. I'm all about the Game of Thrones.
Oh, me too. I am so pumped to be rewatching these and for the new season and everything. So, with that, got anything else before we call it a night? Still end up being an hour and a half, but it's not quite as bad.
Know. We're getting better, man. You and I could probably talk about Game of Thrones for a 10-hour show.
We could, I think, yeah. So,
But yeah, like just thanks to everybody that did join us. Thanks to everybody that's watching it on the replay. Yeah, we'll be back for the season 3 sooner or later.
Yeah, so hopefully soon. So we will definitely probably gonna go watch an episode tonight just because I need to. So all right.
All right. Have fun at your con, brother.
Yeah. Later, guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.